What is up, y'all? Welcome back. It is time for round 20 of our first season in Formula One. You can see us sitting 8th in the Drivers' Championship, just a couple of points behind our old teammate, and a little bit ahead of Danny Rick, who is now in the much faster Red Bull seat. So here we are, hopping into our messages. We are headed to Interlagos in Brazil. We have a failure in our development system, and we will take a peek at the weather forecast in just a moment. And we've got another wet race incoming. I think by my count, we've had 9 out of our 20 races so far this season affected by rain, especially that big, huge streak of rainy races in the first third. So we're going to take a peek into the R&D tree. You can see you have that failure in the fuel injection system, so we'll have to repurchase that. We are sitting 4th from the bottom in our performance index. You can see the climbs we've made over the season after that 7th place there in the USA. So we're on a bit of a points run here, and we're going to take a peek at the parts as well. You can see a little bit of health still left in that final engine, hoping to make that work for the rest of the season. But all things aside, let's hop in and head off to qualifying.
So it's time for qualifying here at Interlagos, the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache. The teams have completed their preparations and are just waiting for the pit lane to open before they take to the track. When it comes to getting lap time out of this circuit, it's traditionally been about maximising top speed. Do you simply remove as much downforce as possible, hang on into the corners and max out down the straights?
The teams will have arrived with all manner of parts designed to capitalise on the long straights. The cars will be that much harder to drive in the corners, but everyone will be in the same boat.
Alright, here we are for our first flying lap of Interlagos as we come down the front straight here through that banked left-hander and get ready to cross the start-finish line. So down that short run into turn 1, a long sweeping downhill left-hander. You really want to try and get to that apex on the left side to set you up for that quick right-hander right after it. You've got a flat-out left-hander that sets you up for the next long straight. The next DRS zone is a good attacking point as we're about to hit the braking zone for a pretty quick 90-degree left-hander, which I ran a little bit wide there, and then into another flat left-handing kink. So we shoot up the hill a little bit of a dab on the brakes to get through that first kink, carry some speed through that next sweeper, and then get hard on the brakes for this little bit of a right hairpin. Then down the hill around this long 180-degree left-hander. Another quick little kink into an even tighter right-hand hairpin. And that's the last of the real crazy braking zones of Sector 2. You hit that flat-out left-hander and then into the final braking zone of that just over 90-degree left-hander. It always seems to keep going. You think you're about ready to exit that left-hander, and it's not there yet. But here we are back on the long front straight through the 2 kinks at high speed through the banking and across the line to set our first lap time. And so as usual, we go back-to-back in Q1 on the first set of soft tires. We've got about a half a second improvement on the lap so far. We're sitting P6 right now, early in the session. But about a half second up when we cross the line, just shy of it. And that'll put us up to P3. But we end Q1 10th fastest. It doesn't really matter how fast we go there, just because, well, we just have to be in the top 15. But we set a time here, Q2. And that'll put us P7. We weren't able to set a quick enough time on the mediums, so we had to go out on the softs. So here we are, Q3, and the rain has already arrived. The original weather forecast said that there was only going to be rain during the race, but unfortunately with us going to be taking that gearbox penalty, we were really hoping for a good qualifying session, and the rain has certainly not helped us out in that regard. As we are setting our flying lap time here, we cross the line at the moment P8.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top 3. Verstappen, Bottas and Daniel Ricciardo. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
The track just got wetter and wetter as that qualifying session went on, so really everybody's first lap time ended up being their best. We shook out P9, so we'll be starting 14, barring any other penalties in the midst of us. But let's jump to the race time.
Where there's a will, well, there's a way. And nowhere has that fact been better demonstrated over the years than here at Interlagos. Remember Senna winning while fighting a gearbox that was jammed in 6th? 5 Drivers' Championship deciders in a row between 2005 and 2009. And of course, the passionate Brazilian fans packing the grandstands to capacity every year. And they're not about to stop now. Interlagos, always a very special race here in Brazil. It's a 2.7-mile circuit with 9 lefts and 6 rights for a total of 15 corners. But it's a wet one today, so grip and visibility will be at a premium. The drivers will need to be careful coming up the hill in Sector 3, the scene of many an accident over the years. Anthony Davidson, thanks for joining me once again for the Grand Prix. Now I want to ask you about Lewis Hamilton. They've had a fantastic campaign, it's been a wonderful year, and they come into this weekend's Grand Prix as a fully deserving champion.
I agree it's been a truly impressive season, but championship or no, I don't think they'll be gently cruising around to the finish line. In fact, with points no longer a concern, there's a lot less to risk, so we may even see a more aggressive approach.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Verstappen. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Sebastian Vettel and Perez, Ricciardo, Norris, Gasly and Lucas Faber, Albon, Butler, Oldtimer and Raikkonen, Hülkenberg, Russell, Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen. Stroll and Carlos Sainz will start from the back of the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Excellent job yesterday. We qualified above expectations. Let's go out there and put in a performance.
Excellent job's not exactly the term I was looking for there. So we did benefit from one penalty in our grouping, so we managed to move up to P13. So we take a look at the session forecast there. You can see the rain going around halfway through the race, so obviously subject to change depending on how the weather feels. So we're just kind of taking a look to see what kind of life we can push the inters out on, if possible. I'd like to try and push those inters one set all the way through the rainy session if it ends up going long. So we can make it almost 20 laps of this race, of the 36 on one set of inters, and not be too worried. So that is likely what we will go after. And depending on where the rain comes in, it'll kind of choose our tire selection for the rest of the race. But here we are on the grid. 5 red lights are up, and a little bit of a slow getaway when the lights come out as we are in the spray. Raikkonen pretty easily gets by us. We're back down to 14th, and we're kind of nudged off the track, just not left enough space in that braking zone by Raikkonen, so we have to kind of rumble over the grass. But luckily, we didn't lose any extra positions on that. We just lost some of our momentum, but we do have our teammate George Russell now right behind us, closing up tight, so we will see what we can do in this start phase. We have a little look to the inside, not quite enough of a run-up to get down past Raikkonen there, as that whole group is really holding up. Very tough to spot your braking points in this spray. And really the track, not great passing opportunities. You can see a little bit of a rear end lock up there. Have to kind of corral the car as it slides around, and woof, we'll almost run into the back of Raikkonen there as they kind of had people jump on the brakes midway through the corner. We have a teeny bit of a look through the hairpin, not quite enough, and George Russell now starts to look to the outside, but neither of us were able to make a move on our intended target, so we just settled back in through that sweeping left and get ready to head down the front straight for the first time. A little bit of oversteer correction there. It was really tough to get on the power through these sweepers in the wet here. As you can see, you kind of have to dance the car around that first sweeper. The banked one was a lot easier to carry. But here we are down into the braking zone of turn 1 once again, and are closing back up on Albon and Raikkonen. So we dropped one position from start, but we're all right. We are going to hop to the end of the lap as Raikkonen is kind of jetted away from us, and Hulkenberg's having a look in our slipstream. You can see, luckily dropping back, we haven't had as much of an issue of spray, but big lockup as we head into turn 1 there. Slide the car sideways, so now we are side by side with Hulkenberg coming through turn 3 and onto the back straight. Crank up the engine, see if we can't keep up, but he's just got a little better momentum. He dives across to the racing line right as he enters the braking zone, and we have to kind of make an evasive maneuver, which really compromises our exit line. And he opens up a huge gap. We're going to jump ahead again. Lap 5, we got a great run on Albon here into the braking zone. He's a little bit later on us, but we managed to get clear. But we have a little bit of a bobble through. He's not gone away just yet. Big oversteers. We tried to get on the throttle a little too early for that left-hand sweeper, and he gets through us once again. I'm going to go ahead and tuck into the slipstream, see if we can't get a run around the outside of this braking zone. Wheel to wheel once again. It's been a good fight so far, but he running on the wet line. He's off the section that's starting to dry out. Has to duck back in. You can see the rain has stopped, so the rain really didn't run as far through the race as I thought it was going to be. I thought it would run at least till lap like 15, 16, but here we are, lap 5. The rain is gone. Now it's just a matter of getting the tires to dry the track enough for us to switch on to the dries. So we'll have a few laps of these inters turning and see when it is time for us to jump in and get onto the dry tires. Well, my thought here is with the rain ending so quickly, I'm thinking of jumping onto the hard tires and seeing if we can't just run those all the way to the end of the race, make it a one-stopper. My original thought was if the rain did run through, lap 16, 17, take up a good chunk, we could probably go onto the mediums and still have enough life to get to the end of the race. So we'll see what the rest of the field does, but we will likely be not in a position to react to what they do and are probably going to go with the hards and try and make a one-stopper out of this race. As you can see, the group behind has a little bit of a battle going with George Russell behind, and we're remaining to hold off Albon at the moment. He's starting to close up on us, though, after that back straight. He got a great slipstream. And here we are into the hairpins section. Really have to nurse the car around. And even though the track is drying now, with no more rain falling, these intermediate tires, their temperatures are getting, well, too hot for their intended operating range. As you can see, we're starting to lose a lot of grip, even compared to when it was raining. So we're definitely out of the optimal tire temp at this point. You can see massive oversteer, have to run it onto the grass to save it. Albon gets pretty easily through us, but he's very slow through that sweeper, so we're able to get right up on his tail. A little bit of a lockup as he's a little slower through that exit, but we get an okay exit. A little bit of wheel spin kind of hurts us. So we're going to tuck in again, as you see just how squirrely the tires are getting with the temperatures up, getting out of their operating window. So we're going to have to kind of nurse it around to make sure. Another big moment there. Even with the brake bias as it is, we're still getting some rear lockup. Probably should have moved it forward a little bit as the track dried out. Just wasn't kind of on top of that, as I was more worried about just keeping the car on the track. Still, in spite of all these wet races, it's still something I definitely struggle with pace-wise. It's definitely a matter of nursing these tires through the technical section, trying to keep them cool so we have grip for the high-speed section of the track coming up at the end of Sector 2 and the final run to the finish line. You see another little bit of oversteer as we just a little too eager on the throttle, just kind of testing it from time to time to see if I have that rear tire grip, but those very, very slick intermediates coming up. So here we are. We get a really solid exit out of the final corner here. You can see us running right up in the slipstream of Albon there right in front of us, right on his gearbox. We're going to get a great run. No DRS yet. Track isn't quite dry enough for it, but you can see we sweep to the outside to get ready to make a move. He doesn't leave us any space in the braking zone. We are almost onto the grass as we hit our brake point, but we're able to get by him through turns 1 and 2 and get a nice and clear coming out of turn 3 through that sweeper.
Conditions look stable at the moment. No rain currently expected. Not sure whether dries or inters are faster. We're right on the crossover.
I'm just checking in with Jeff to see what the weather report is like. No rain incoming, so we jump ahead at lap 10 as we're diving into the pits on the brakes. And you can see Albon just ran into the back of us as we hit the brakes for the for the pit entry. So luckily we slowed down enough to where he didn't nudge us over the speed limit. That would have been a bummer, but he is certainly going to have to make an emergency wing change. So here we are going on to the hard tires. You can see we are out just ahead of the Renault, the McLaren. You can see how much extra time that Toro Rosso is taking getting out of the pit lane. So he loses a few positions thanks to his over-aggressiveness entering the pit lane. And you can see Hulkenberg behind us, I believe. Hulkenberg? Yep. Hulkenberg behind us on the soft tires. You can see on the position indicator top left there, Devin Butler ahead of us has also gone on the soft. So it looks like other teams are opting for a two-stop strategy, going softs onto maybe another set of softs or maybe mediums, depending on what they have available. So really it's going to be a feeling out phase. And Hulkenberg runs right into the back of us, sticks his nose up for whatever reason, but we get a lucky slide across the grass that puts us right onto the racetrack there as the McLaren of Sainz goes right by us. But I'm not sure what exactly he was thinking. It wasn't even a braking zone or a dive bomb opportunity. It was on the turn exit. He just drove into the right rear of us and spun us both out. But as you can see, the amount of sliding that these hard tires are doing on this cold track, the tires are just not getting up to temperature really fast enough. So we're definitely losing some lap time to these soft tire runners initially. So, but hopefully we'll be able to make a good run in the longer stints as they come in for their second pit and we start to make up time. But you see Magnussen on the inside there as we get by him as he's coming out of the pit lane.
We've moved into P14.
We are back up to P14, which is where we were before the pit phase. As you can see in the fuel mix bar there, we're having to do some turning down of the engine modes for whatever reason. Even though it was going to be a wet-dry race, the fuel levels automatically seem to assume a full wet race, which is lower because you're not on full throttle as often. So usually when you go from a wet to a dry race, especially earlier than expected, you're going to be over target with your fuel consumption. So you have to spend some time turning it down, and luckily we've got a pretty slow technical section that is not very engine reliant as we go wide through the hairpin, just understeered off. The nose really didn't want to turn in there. That lets Stroll get by us. But as I was saying, luckily we have that very slow technical section where engine power is not a huge issue. It's a great chance for us to turn the engine down, conserve fuel, but you definitely want to crank it right back up as we head down the straights. DRS is enabled as we look to make a run down the inside of Stroll. Later on the brakes, we hug the inside. He's a little bit wheel to wheel with us through turn 1, but he backs out before we switch back for turn 2. So our little mistake that let Stroll by us didn't cost us too hard. We're able to get that position back without too much issue. So we're going to go ahead and jump ahead. Lap 16. Albon's got a great run on us and DRS open. He's going to the outside. We kind of squeeze him, not leave a ton of room, but we are side by side through turn 1, but able to just hold him off from the inside line before we hit turn 2. As one challenge pushed away. We take a peek at tire consumption. 7 laps in, only about 10% tire wear, so seems to be doing just fine. We seem to be battling with the softs okay at this stage, but we have certainly lost contact with Sainz ahead of us. It took a few laps, but we were able to get these hards up to a decent operating temperature. But we definitely lost some lap time in those early stages. Luckily, with the rain stopping, there was also projection for sun later in the race, so the track temperature is also warming up, which will definitely help into playing in the hard. As you can see, we're setting better and better lap times pretty much each lap here. Luckily this time Albon just outside that 1 second DRS range, so he's not going to be able to close up on us quite as easily. You see the Racing Point, Lance Stroll now battling with Albon, which should only serve to help us out. The more they squabble behind, the more of a chance we have to open up a gap. Looks like, I believe, is that the two Haas's right behind as well? Looked black and gold from the distance in the rear view there. At this point, after our upsetting qualifying showing with the rain coming much during qualifying when we weren't really expecting it, and the grid penalty, we really banking on this strategy helping us catch the field up, because they definitely opened up a pretty solid gap in the rainy phase. We've got a lot of ground to try and make up. At this point, our string of points finishes is very much in danger. P14, we're going to have to make up 4 positions, and really not a lot of opportunity to do so. The field is just spread all over the track. I mean, we can't even see Carlos Sainz as we come down the main straight here. He's already through turn 1 before we even get out of that last corner. But we're going to go ahead and jump ahead, lap 23. We are still sitting P14.
Our gap to the car in front is 13.
A couple of cars in front of us have jumped onto another set of softs. You can see Butler on the inside there, Lando Norris, the other McLaren in front as well. So we managed to get P13 for the moment. We'll see if we can't hold off the soft runners for the last 12 laps of this race here. So now we've got unfortunately, we're on some slightly worn hards, and we've got a set of fresh softs on our tail, so he's definitely going to have a much better pace on those tires once they get up to temperature, which on the softs should only be about a half a lap or so. You see a bit of oversteer there, allows Butler to close right up on our tail, which is really where we don't want him coming into this final turn, because he'll be in DRS range through the detection zone. Here we are jumping on the power. We're going to see if we turn the ERS up, or if we choose not to really fight it. Yep, we cranked it up. And at this point, we are 25% wear with 10 laps to go. So I mean, the tires will make it, but the matter is we might have to come in. We just might not have the pace. So I did throw a next stop if needed, throw softs on as Raikkonen comes out right in front of us, a little slow through that section, compromises our entry, so we end up going wide. He dives back through as he basically swung right into our braking line, so we really had to take a poor late second line through that corner, but there he goes right in front of us. We'll see if we can't chase him down and get that position from him on these hards. Really, that's going to be the determining factor, is if we can race with these two on the hards, and we'll stay with it to the end of the race. You can see a little lock up into the hairpin, but we are definitely battling a bit with Devin Butler. He's going to have I'm sure, a good run at us coming through the DRS zone. But we should, I believe, yep, we do have DRS assistance to try and catch up on Raikkonen, but those soft tires, he gets great launch out of that final corner. And the way he was just kind of running away from us through that first lap, coming back on the track, we decide we're coming in. We're going to pit this lap. We're going to throw on a set of softs. We're really rejoin position of 14th is the projection. We have a pretty decent gap to the grouping behind us, as I didn't think we were going to be able to hold off Devin Butler, and he gets pretty easily down the inside of us on that corner. Those fresh softs are just not something we're really going to be able to hang with. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and throw on some softs. At this stage, we're pretty much resigned to being out of the points. Sainz behind us will overtake us in the pits. really my thought at this stage of the race was we're going to be out of the points. We've got 10 laps to go. Maybe we can see where we come out behind Sainz. Maybe have a chance of running him down to get 13th back after the pit phase. But really, it was a choice between either running worn hards and just kind of nursing the tires and managing the rest of the race, or throwing on some softs and getting some more, driving on the limit practice and really pushing and hustling the car on a faster tire and seeing what we can do there. So we'll have about a 9-lap stint on these softs to finish off the race here. You can see that group just crossing into turn 1 there, and we had just enough time in our pit window to come out ahead of that group. If that group was a little bit closer and our pit put us in danger of falling behind all those, I probably would not have taken the pit stop, but the fact that we were only going to lose 1 position and it looks like we're 13 seconds back, decided to go ahead and jump on the softs instead. So we jump ahead, lap 34, about 3 laps left to go. We've opened the gap back up to that group behind us. We got about a 6-second lead there, and we're about 13 seconds still behind Carlos Sainz, who is running really good lap times, even still on those slightly worn, those more worn softs. Was kind of a hope that with, coming out of the pits originally, we were about 13 seconds back with 9 laps to go, and I was going to see just kind of what I could cut into, but the answer is none. Could not cut into his gap on this track. I just really missed a lot of apexes. First time I've really raced this track, so even with the practice sessions and qualifying time, it's still tough to get smooth consistency through a track for longer runs. So here we are, about half a second down of our best personal lap of the race, but we're starting to burn off fuel. These softs are starting to get decently worn at this point. I think during the race, most of the time, the softs would have been good on their own for about 10 to 12 laps to be really screaming, and I really came out of the pits and hustled the car as much as I could the first few laps. But now I'm definitely in tire management mode, let's say. See that on the straight, you can see that group, but coming through the corners, they're a ways off of us. Not really even showing up on camera through the last little phase. So we I think going on to the softs was a good idea at the end. I really in hindsight for this race wish I hadn't gone on to the hards. It really just turned out that especially while the track was still cold, that there just really wasn't enough grip for those hards to be competitive. We were losing some significant lap time to all the cars that went on to the softs, especially cars that were in contention. We really battled with cars that were below our performance index when we were on the hards, but we weren't able to really run down the McLarens or anyone else. And here we are crossing the line for the final lap, 14.5 seconds back of Sainz there. So as I said, we kind of lifted off the pace a bit for the final couple of laps, try and conserve a little bit of engine, since we do need to make this ICE make it through the final race of the season, and it was coming in already at about around 40-something% wear, so we'll see what it's at the end, but I definitely don't want to have to take a grid penalty in the final race of the season as we head to get ready to head out to Abu Dhabi. And unfortunately, it looks like we're going to lose more ground to our old teammate Lucas in the Drivers' Championship. And we will need a really good result in order to probably catch him back up. And Ricardo, I think, was 11 points behind us. So he has a very good chance of overtaking us today as well. Another Red Bull win, Max Verstappen. That car really came on at the end of this season. They jumped really to the top of the R&D charts, passed Ferrari and Mercedes for the last 6 or so races, but that's the end of this one.
That's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Ferme.
14th place, not our best result, but we just kind of drove around today.
Red Bull pulling out all the stops today. What a great win. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, I know it's a bit of a boring answer, but the truth is they simply had the best speed package on the day, and a driver who knows how to take advantage of that. It doesn't matter how much time you spend poring over the stats and planning strategies if you can't keep the pace, and our winner today showed they could do both.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everyone at the team.
And the top three teams on the top three steps of the podium there, one each from Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. No Lewis Hamilton on the podium for probably the first time in a while, honestly. But he had already wrapped up the Drivers' Championship, so it was largely ceremonial at this point.
Well, the gap at the top of the championship has been cut down after a difficult race today for our championship leader. After an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Carlos Sainz certainly wasn't someone to scoff about. His ability to follow race strategies throughout with pinpoint precision has to be commended.
Nothing can challenge the leaders of the Constructors' Championship at this point, but it's another clear win for Mercedes as they managed to secure the Constructors' title. An incredible performance for the whole team. Meanwhile, a strong weekend from Red Bull this time out, and they improved their position in the championship. Well, that was certainly an incredible weekend of racing. Be sure to join myself and Ant for more exciting Formula One action soon.
It's funny, after every race since Mercedes has clinched the Constructors, they talk about how Mercedes has finally clinched the Constructors, but they also talk about how other teams are moving up and down in the Constructors' Championship at the top of the table. And as you also heard, a tough weekend for the championship leader. His lead decreases, even though he's already won the championship. But you saw a quick second there, team standings, Red Bull jumps Ferrari into second in the Constructors. And we lost ground to Daniel Ricciardo in that Red Bull, so we are down to 9th in the drivers' standings at the end of this season so far. One more race to go, but we are back in the garage taking a peek at our rivalry breakdown. Obviously, we're still beating up on George Russell a little bit. Again, difficulty adjustment incoming for the start of Season 2. Let's see what kind of resource points we can grab. And we made nobody happy. Well, that happens when you underperform.
That's very disappointing. I know you can do better than that. Take stock of what went wrong so you can get a better result next time.
Rain is what went wrong. I mean, look at that. We did so poorly that we didn't have an interview with Claire this weekend. Failed to hit targets. Yeah, I know. It's a bummer. But grid penalty plus rain really didn't work out very well for me. So we're going to pop into R&D. Obviously repurchase the busted engine upgrade. We don't have quite enough to make any upgrades in our aero department, which is where we'd like to. I don't want to spend anything in chassis or durability development at this stage. So really our only other option is this minor ERS cooling upgrade. So we've still got about 500 points to play with. We'll just go ahead and bank those for the next week or so. We're about, like I said, 4th from the bottom of the R&D tree, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 race point streak was snapped with that one. So we were on a pretty good run there. You see that engine 61% wear at this point, so it should make it through the end of the final race. Gearbox will be no issue. We'll just make sure that we utilize a different set of engine components for the practices and then switch on to that final ICE for the last race. Now, one thing that did happen in regards to the R&D, my game had a crash after I stopped recording, and even though the race was completed and everything, when I moved on to the next weekend, none of my R&D changes were saved. So when we go into next week and you see a ton of R&D points sitting there and no new developments, that's what happened. But that is the end of this race. We have one more left in this season. We head to Abu Dhabi for the Season 1 finale and closing out, seeing if we can't get a position back in the Drivers' Championship and see where our team ends up in the Constructors. So thank you guys for watching. Come back next time and see how we close out this season. See you guys later.